It is hard to determine the 5 best of anything in life, not to mention the 5 best horror movies or the highest rated. There are so many iconic movies that not only linger with us but have had major influence on the horror genre as a whole. There are just so many factors that come into play. So I've compiled a list of my personal favourite horror movies that I believe to be some of the best movies ever made and the highest rated. So today on Top 5 Scary Videos, I'm going to be counting down our list of the top 5 highest rated horror movies of all time, in my personal opinion. Before we begin though, be sure to stick around until the end of the video where I'll be responding to some of your comments. And with that, let's jump in. Coming in at 5, Jaws. Jaws is a 1975 thriller/horror directed by Steven Spielberg and based on Peter Benchley's 1974 novel of the same name. In the film, a giant man-eating great white shark attacks beachgoers at a New England summer resort town, prompting Police Chief Martin Brody to hunt it with the help of a marine biologist and a professional shark hunter. Shot mostly on location on Martha's Vineyard in Massachusetts, Jaws had a troubled production, going over budget and past schedule, with the mechanical shark often malfunctioning. Considered to be one of the greatest movies of all time, Jaws was the prototypical summer blockbuster, often regarded as the watershed moment in motion picture history. Upon its release and while in theaters, the film was said to have caused a single case of cinematic neurosis in a 17-year-old female viewer. Cinematic neurosis is a condition in which viewers exhibit mental health disturbances or a worsening of existing mental health disturbances after viewing a film. The symptoms first presented as sleep disturbances and anxiety, but one day later the patient was said to have been screaming, "Sharks, sharks," and experiencing convulsions. Upon its release, Jaws received mostly positive reviews, with Roger Ebert calling it a sensationally effective action picture, a scary thriller that works all the better because it's populated with characters that have been developed into human beings. Jaws went on to win 3 Academy Awards for Best Film Editing, Best Original Dramatic Score, and Best Sound. It was also nominated for Best Picture but lost out to One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Jaws was key in establishing the benefits of a wide national release backed by heavy television advertising. It also played a major part in establishing the summer as the prime season for the release of studio's biggest box office contenders. Not to mention, it also set a template for many subsequent horror films, to the extent that the script for Ridley Scott's 1979 film Alien was pitched to studio execs as Jaws in space. Coming in at number 4, Halloween. Halloween is a 1978 slasher directed by John Carpenter, a director who may very well make another appearance on our list further down the line. The movie starred Donald Pleasence and Jamie Lee Curtis in her film debut. The plot tells about a mental patient who was committed to a sanitarium for murdering his teenage sister on Halloween night. 15 years later, he escapes and returns to his hometown, where he stalks a female babysitter and her friends, while under pursuit by his psychiatrist. Now, upon its initial release, the movie performed relatively well, even with very little advertising, relying mostly on word of mouth. However, many critics seemed uninterested or dismissive of the film as a whole. Pauline Kael from The New Yorker even wrote a scathing review stating that, I quote, "Carpenter doesn't seem to have had any life outside of the movies. One can trace almost every idea on the screen to directors such as Hitchcock and Brian De Palma, and to the Val Lewton productions." She also went on to claim that maybe when a horror film is stripped of everything but dumb scariness, when it isn't ashamed to revive the stalest device of the genre, it satisfies part of the audience in a more basic, childish way than sophisticated horror pictures do. Shots fired. However, that review aside, the movie currently holds an impressive 96% on Rotten Tomatoes, and is also dubbed as one of the films that birthed the slasher genre. To this day, it is considered to be one of the best films of all time, not to mention one of the most important. Halloween was such a success over the years, it spawned a film franchise comprising of 11 films, which helped construct an extensive backstory for our favourite villain Michael Myers. However, an 11th movie was released as a direct sequel to the original film, which retcons all previous sequels, thank God, because for a period of time, Jamie Lee Curtis and Michael Myers were supposed to be brother and sister, but we can't be having that. Makes no sense. Coming in at number 3, The Wailing. The Wailing is a 2016 South Korean supernatural horror film directed by Na Hong-jin. The film centers on a policeman who investigates a series of mysterious killings and illnesses in a remote Korean hamlet called Goksang in order to save his daughter. The film received widespread acclaim, with Rotten Tomatoes giving it a 99%, with the general consensus being, The Wailing delivers an atmospheric, cleverly constructed mystery whose supernatural thrills more than justify its imposing length. Now yes, it is a long film, very long actually, but every single second is worthwhile. Jada Yun of Vulture described the film as operating on a level that makes most American cinema seem clunky and unimaginative. The script is superb, but the acting is what sets the movie apart. It's terrifying yet emotionally crippling. It is initially set up as a thriller before the supernatural elements begin setting in, and when they do, things get incredibly scary very quickly. Although it is a slow burn, this is a horror movie that successfully manages to include ghosts, zombies, body horror, not to mention an exorcism, demonic curses, and terrifying children. It takes a lot to pull that off, but The Wailing successfully proved that it is far superior than any horror released in the last 10 years. It is superb and needs to be watched by everybody. Trust me. Listen to me. Coming in at number 2, Suspiria. Suspiria is a 1977 Italian supernatural horror movie directed by one of my favorite directors, Dario Argento, who co-wrote the screenplay with Daria Nicolodi, which is partially based on Thomas de Quincey's 1845 essay Suspiria de Profundis. The film stars Jessica Harper as an American ballet student who transfers to a prestigious dance academy in Germany, but quickly realizes, after a series of brutal murders, that the academy is a front for a supernatural conspiracy. It is also the first of the trilogy Argento refers to as the Three Mothers, which also comprises Inferno and The Mother of Tears. The movie itself became one of Argento's most successful films, receiving critical acclaim for its visuals and stylistic flair, use of vibrant colours, and its score by Argento and the progressive rock band Goblin. On Rotten Tomatoes, the film holds a 93% rating, with the general consensus being the blood pours freely in Argento's classic Suspiria, a giallo horror as grandiose and glossy as it is gory. In the years since its release, Suspiria has been cited as a cult classic, and in the European Nightmares horror cinema in Europe since 1945, the film is noted as being, I quote, an exemplar of Euro horrors. It is excessive, but here the excess seems to entail a more forceful retardation of a narrative drive, to the extent that the narrative periodically ceases to exist. End quote. Not to mention, The Village Voice ranked Suspiria as 100 on their list of 100 greatest movies in the 20th century. However, I disagree, it's easily number 2 on my list and will forever remain there. Suspiria is absolutely genius and we need to show it some more respect, as we do Dario Argento. They did make an American remake. I haven't seen it because I refuse to watch. I will never watch it. Judge away. And finally, coming in at number 1, The Thing. The Thing is a 1982 science fiction horror directed by the legendary John Carpenter and based on the 1938 novella Who Goes There, written by John W. Campbell Jr. It tells the story of a group of American researchers in Antarctica who encounter the eponymous Thing, a parasitic extraterrestrial life form that assimilates then imitates other organisms. The group is of course overcome by paranoia and conflict as they learn that they can no longer trust each other and that any one of them could in fact be the Thing. The film stars Kurt Russell as MacReady, as well as A. Wilford Brimley, T.K. Carter, David Clennon, Keith David, and Richard Dysart. The Thing was released in 1982 to incredibly negative reviews, with it being described as instant junk and a wretched excess, and proposed as the most hated film of all time by the film magazine Cinefantastique. However, things changed drastically when it found an audience when it was released on home video and television. In the years since, it has been reappraised as one of the best horror films ever made and has gained a huge cult following. Similarly, The Thing has appeared countless times on lists of the top horror films, including number 1 by the Boston Globe. In a 2011 interview, Carpenter remarked that it was close to, if not, his favourite film from his own filmography, with the director lamenting that it took a long time for the movie to find a wider audience, saying, I quote, "If The Thing had been a hit, my career would have been different. I wouldn't have had to make the choices that I made, but I needed a job. I'm not saying I hated the movies I did. I loved making Christine and Starman and Big Trouble in Little China. All those films, but my career would have been different. The Thing to this day remains one of the greatest movies ever made, and personally one of my favourite horror films to date." Well, there we have it. Do you guys agree with that list? Were there any horror movies that we missed? Leave us all your thoughts and feelings in the comments down below, and perhaps we can do a part 2. Before I go though, I just want to respond to a few comments from one of our last videos. Top 5 worst horror movies of the decade you should never watch. The Jericho1123 said, "The gallows caused Lucy's nosebleeds. Well, there's going to be a sequel." I mean, the gallows didn't cause my nosebleeds, but maybe it did. I don't know the facts. You tell me. Also, I can't believe there's a sequel. It's honestly one of the worst horror films I've ever watched in my life. Max Donda said, "Oh man, Lucy is always on point, especially in this vid. I just love how she handles the comments. Just awesome. Long live the queen." I mean, I enjoy comments even when they're scathing and horrible and about me living in a dumpster, so. Marcus said, no mention of Doug Jones. I'm very disappointed. He was the only good thing in the Bye Bye Man. Marcus, let's get it straight. There was no good thing about the Bye Bye Man, not even Doug Jones. Stop fooling yourself, fool. Macamelian Rex said, if Lucy says I shouldn't watch, then it means I must watch. No, it means you need to listen to me and not watch, because it's honestly a waste of your time. But if you don't want to do as I say, that's on you. Just know there's consequences. And on that note, if you haven't already, be sure to give this video a big thumbs up, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss another scary vid. Until next time, see you later.